Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we're going to work on a reel from Mark from Virginia Beach. This is the Team Daiwa 103 HVA. It's a very high-speed reel. As you can see how it kind of scoots along there. Mark sent it in, asked it to be cleaned and just general service. It seems to be running just fine. And we're going to take this apart. We'll show you how it's made. If you have one of these, you'll know how to service it when we're done. And if you don't have one of these and are thinking of buying it, well, you'll get a good idea about what this reel involves, both in terms of servicing and upkeep. So please stay tuned, watch this one. I think you'll enjoy it. I haven't worked on one of these in a while. I don't have the schematic. So one of the things that I recommend is to take pictures along the way to make sure that if you lose sight of a piece or part, you can always go back to your pictures and get it as a reference. And of course my pictures are the video that I'm doing here. You don't need to do a video, but you can do still pictures, cell phone camera, digital camera, and the like, and just take it at critical junctions, and that way you'll have a guide path back if you get lost along the way in your reinstall. So you'll notice a couple of things. I wear a protective glove on my hand to keep greases and the like off. I have a little tray. It's nothing more than the bottom of a container. And I have a couple of tools right at hand here, so that as we go to remove the pieces and parts, I don't need to leave my workstation to try and find one and then maybe lose my train of thought. So we're going to start by taking off the pieces and parts. I just took the hold down nut caps screw off. That screws into the handle. I'm going to put that in my parts tray so that I don't lose it. And then next up then is a 10 millimeter nut that's holding the handle on. So I'm going to take that off, and as we do, I'm going to thank our first responders and essential personnel, law enforcement, EMTs, fire and rescue, and everybody in the medical industry that's helping keep us safe or restore our health during the pandemic. Your efforts truly are appreciated. Alright, so that came off in a traditional counterclockwise turn. The handle can be removed, and then you'll have a little bit of a tension washer that goes behind the handle and actually stops this from pressing into the handle as you back off your drags. This is your star adjuster. We can remove that now. And these are good places to take the pictures because you want to make sure that you know the sequence of the pieces and parts. For example, we have two tension washers and a flat washer here. The flat washer is the first off. I'd like to put them right back into the cap the way that they came off. And then we have two tension washers, and every now and then I get a question on these because they are not flat washers. They have a bow to them, and the question usually involves should I flatten them out? Did they get bent in the process of going fishing? Well, no, they didn't get bent there. That's to provide variability in the adjusting of that star and drag tension. So don't do anything with that. You'll also notice that there's a small washer on the shaft here that is on top of the bearing, and when you go to reinstall, you're going to want to do that. Okay, this one is kind of an interesting little reel. It has 3 screws on that side, and it has a screw that comes all the way through. You can see this shaft, that's going to be a screw, so you will not be able to remove this side plate without getting to that screw. And the way you get to that screw is by turning this nut that's in the case here, that's holding on your mag adjuster. That's spring loaded, so at some point you'll see it come out with the spring. Not quite yet. There you go. When it comes out like that, all you do is a simple turn, just like that. It'll turn the plate down, and then you can remove the side plate. This side plate came with the screw out, not a problem, or the spool out rather, not a problem. And there's nothing you need to do on this side plate other than to oil that bearing. So I'm going to use Reel X. It's an aftermarket fishing reel oil. It's a synthetic oil. I've had a lot of luck with it. And then we're just going to place that into the parts tray so that I don't lose it. Notice we have one more bearing that's on the handle side. So let's go ahead and, while we have our oils and everything, just let that kind of get flooded and just work its way in. And then this side is the back side for the the spool which is sitting in that case. This is the screw I was referring to. It's a long shaft that's holding in your line guide mechanism, but it's also holding in this side case. So I'm going to go and do the removal of the side plate screws here. This has got one of those little screws that can either be a flat blade or a Phillips head. Some kind of a machine tool puts that on. In this case, I'm using a flat-bladed screwdriver. And when you take these screws out, just make sure they're all the same length. Every now and then you're going to find Daiwa and Shimano and other manufacturers are going to put a screw that's not the same length in one of the positions. And you just want to note what position it's in if they're not the same length. So I'm taking these off. We're going to put these on the table, just to make sure that they're all the same size. And if they're all the same size, doesn't matter which way they go back in when you go to reinstall. Okay, those three are the same size, so I'm going to take the three of those and put them into my parts tray. And as you can see, my parts tray is starting to fill up now, but it's always a great place to recognize where the pieces and parts go when you go to reinstall. All right now you'll notice that you can't get that off. So what you want to do then is come over here and you'll see a small screw head in that pass-through bar. So we want to take that off. And you need a micro driver for this one. It's just not that much of a case there, and I can feel that the side plate's already loosening here. So I'm going to pull this bar out. I'm going to use a needle nose pliers to pull that out, because there's a couple of things we want to do. Not only do we want to service the case here, but we also want to service the line guide. All right, this should just all come up now. It does. On the inside of this, you want to, I guess we can remove that. There's a little tension washer. It's a stud. It kind of comes in from here, so we can pull that out with the cap. I just felt this fall off. This is the little shield that goes on top of the bearing that was here, so we're just going to put that in there. Then we have a bearing there. That bearing should just kind of come out. And we also have the shield on the other side for the sleeve that's going to be the brake sleeve for our anti-reverse. So we can push that through. Just to make sure we clean the anti-reverse. You don't need to do anything with anti-reverses. A lot of people think that you should be putting grease on there. You really shouldn't. But I just use a light coating of the penetrating oil just to clean it up. And then this gear sleeve we're going to place back in here as well. You're going to notice on the gear assembly here, that bar in there, that we have two springs. They're different sizes, so that's pretty good. That's an easy way to get those right. Then we have our main gear, which can come off. We have our yoke, and we have our pinion gear. And this side of the yoke is actually the trip to the free spool release. So this reel is very clean. If anything, it's just dry. So I'm just going to kind of do a real quick WD-40 for a degreaser type of product. That's not WD-40. That's a generic hardware brand. But this case is very clean here. So this reel just generally needs a lot of lubrication, and we'll be ready to go on. When you took that bar off, you were able now to get the faceplate off of the reel, so that'll come off. And I'm laying these pieces here because they're going to go right back in. We have a lot of dirt and the like inside the case, so one more time we'll just kind of use that penetrating oil as a degreaser, and then we'll get in there with a cotton swab to clean all of that up. Do that on both sides. And you'll see that you got play in this line guide now because the mechanism is off. Alright, so we did a nice cleaning there. Got all the dirt and the like out of that piece. And so let's go service the pawl while we're at it. Just have a pawl cap here. You can't get at that pawl cap unless you take that faceplate off, so you can see that kind of the the work of this is all about just taking the whole reel apart basically to service a pawl here, but that's okay. Alright, I was just checking to make sure that the teeth and everything are fine on the pawl. They are. I just want to make sure that the tracks on both sides of this have a clean edge to them as well. And once you do, you can go ahead and put that back in. Just like that. And if you spin it, you will get it seated. So I like to just kind of take the gear here and just turn the worm drive until that pawl rides flush like that. Just put a little drop of oil in here while we get that seating. Then we can put the pawl cap back on. We can put the shield back on. That's all nice and clean there. Just checking to make sure I have the shield the right way. There's two different prongs here. The top prong belongs up. You need to move that line guide assembly forward so that you can cover the pawl. You can see it this way better. And we can grab that little through bar there. Now I'm not going to tighten it at this point because I can't, but I can get everything else lined up here and just kind of coming through just like that to hold that assembly in place. So that's all good. Back to here now, we've cleaned that. Let's go ahead and put some oil onto the key parts of the mechanism. Then we'll come over here, we'll get this greased up. You want to make sure it's clean. In this case it is. If anything, it's very dry, but otherwise it's clean. If you needed some additional cleaning, you could use a steel wool pad. You can wipe it off with some paper towels, whatever it takes to get the grease and grime off. In this case, as I mentioned, there's very little of that around. Alright, we're going to use fishing reel grease. We're going to use, in this case, we're going to use Penn Precision Reel Grease. It's that's the blue grease that I use. It really doesn't matter whose brand you're using. You don't have to use Daiwa grease, and you don't have to use you do need to use fishing reel grease. Alright, that's the fat side. There's two different sizes on the holes. The whole big side, which means that the spool gear faces outward in that direction, because it's the spool facing that needs to grab the spool on the other side. We're going to grease both of those up, and then we're going to come over and put them over the posts here. And slipped it off. Kind of hard doing it for the camera and efficiency, but there you go. Alright, we're in. So that's the way this shall seat, and you'll notice that this little piece is going to get pushed down. When you push the button here, this button, it's going to move this assembly down. It's going to push this behind. You can see the tag on here. It's going to push that into the groove, and then when you turn the handle, that it's going to flip it back. Alright, that's that side. Let's go ahead and take the firm washer out, put that on the shaft, clean up the back of the main gear, check the teeth of the main gear, make sure they're all uniform. Now this one was turning nice and smooth, so all this is going to need then is grease. I'm using an artist's brush to put the grease on. I guess you can use just about anything you want, everything from screwdrivers to your fingers if you really wanted to. And then I'll just check the drag washer here. This is a hard washer, you don't need to do anything with it. Nice thick hard washer. And it's almost like a brake pad kind of a pad. So that goes on next. And you want to make sure you intersect with the pinion gear, get it nice and firm. and intersect with the drive on the line guide. We didn't grease that before, so we'll grease that now. Alright, so all of your gears are greased. We'll go ahead and put our main washer back on. And we had our sleeve for the anti-reverse. That goes next. And we had our backing. Oh, I have that in reverse. Backing, washer, then the sleeve. Okay, now we're set up for that. The only thing that we need before we reinstall on this side then is those two big springs. The spring on the one side, spring on the other. Those two posts. We can go ahead and grab our side plate then. The side plate was clean. Remember before we just worked that out. There's a bearing here. We can put some oil on that. I believe that's a bearing. Looks like it. And then we can just replace this side plate. We'll just slide it all in and match it up. And we have the 3 side plate screws. We're going to go to the tray for that. So if you like what you're seeing here, I'm going to ask you to subscribe, because I work on all kinds of fishing reels, and if you're into fishing reel repair for either a hobby or pleasure or just something to do, then I show all kinds. And of course, this one is a low-profile bait caster, but I work on saltwater, freshwater. I work on big equipment like trolling reels for tuna, and I work on very small, intricate reels for bass fishing and the like. And if you like this kind of thing, then I would appreciate a subscription. And if you do, hit that notification button, because I'm always posting, and your notifications will tell you when I posted, so that you can see the latest episode. All right, we have that bar that goes through here. That's going to tie the case in this way now. And you need a micro screwdriver for this one. Kind of tightly engineered. A lot of times when you're taking off baitcaster components, you're going to find that they hide screws, or they use screws in a fairly unique way. So just be prepared for it. Sometimes on Shimano's, for example, you can't get the side plate off without removing a screw that's hidden under here, under the spool. So just be aware of that. Let me just give a quick turn on that, make sure everything's smooth there. I'm going to put this pressure piece in here. That's going to provide the spool tension for you to put more or less resistance onto that. We've got the offset here. We have a bearing which we oiled before, but we can put a little bit more oil on that here. It's been sitting in the tray with the oil on it. And actually, we got a bearing shield that goes under that. So let's pull that out. That's a little piece I was referring to before that kind of jumped off my reel. Okay, it's hard to grab. That shield goes there on top of the ferrule. It's inside your anti-reverse. There we go. Now we can put our bearing on. Then we got the sequence here. Remember, we have the 2 tension washers. You can go face to face, side to side, or opposing, whatever tension you like on the star adjuster. It's a variability. Then we have the flat washer, and we have our star adjuster. And you need to make sure that it's going on square. If you meet any resistance at all, just back it off and do it again. There we go. And then and it's a good time to give it a test, just to make sure everything's running right on the gear side, and that's turning beautifully. You can see how quickly this will spool. Speaking of that spool, let's get over there. The spool has the bearing that we did. This is the gear side. It's got a little spring-loaded piece here. Just get a little bit of grease onto the shaft there. Just brush for that. And we've already oiled the bearing on this side. You'll notice that there's a little cross member coming through here. That's actually going to sit in the spool shaft. You can see it here in that gear there. All right, just kind of insert that, get that seated. I'll come back over to this side then. You remember how we got this off. So it's simply mounting that over the spool shaft till it clicks, turning it in, grabbing the screwdriver to just tighten that down now. Again, it's spring loaded, so you need a little bit of tension when you're tightening that. I'll just go reinstall the handle, and I'm going to get this one back to Mark to go fishing again. Alright, so we've got the tension washer. The handle goes next. 10mm nut. Going on in a clockwise manner. And again, I like to tension what I can by hand, just so that I make sure that it's correct. And then generally speaking, if you get your flat side of the nut perpendicular to the hole, and your nut cap is going to line up so that you can put your set screw in. That's the next tightening procedure right there. Get that down. It did work. That's it. We'll give it a test drive here. Make sure everything is nice. It's certainly nice and smooth, that's for sure. Make sure that our free spool is working. That's a beautiful reel. And nicely that spins. Make sure it trips back when we get set. Make sure your drags are holding. Yep, drags are holding fine. That's it. That's your Team Daiwa 103 HVA. It's a nice freshwater reel, and this one's ready to go fishing again. So I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, please like it. If you want to see more, as I mentioned, please subscribe. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. And finally, if you have a reel that needs repair or service, well, I do that too, and I do it by mail. So contact me on the email on the business card that follows, and I'll be happy to provide you with reel repair information. So this is Dennis from Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.